You're listening to When Isabel Met Aviva, a podcast about rom-coms, female-driven screenwriting, and how to break into the entertainment industry. I'm Isabel.
And I'm Aviva.
And this is episode 3 of season 2. Today we have a guest interview with Marie Hines. We watched her movie that she wrote, Love at First Like, which was, I don't know why, I just really liked that title. I thought it was cute.
It's cute. On Peacock, we watched.
Oh yeah, it was on Peacock.
Yeah, it was super cute. And we reached out. Actually, I think one of our listeners tagged her.
Oh, really?
Said, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say fans, like one of our peers tagged her and said we should chat with her.
That's
how we connected. Okay. Yeah.
Well, shout out to that person, whoever they are.
I believe it was Portia, I believe.
Okay.
So shout out to you.
Shout out to Portia.
And we're really excited to chat with her. And she was also in the film. So
I was going to say, didn't you say she was one of the,
she was the best friend,
right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's bring her into the pod.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, thanks so much, Hannah, for coming on our podcast today. Yeah. We're really excited to chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I guess maybe to start, could you tell us a little bit about just like your journey? Like, how long have you been screenwriting? Like, how did you first get into screenwriting? And I don't know too much about your background, actually.
Okay. Yeah. I came to screenwriting through acting, which was wholly unexpected for me. So I've been living and working as an actor in Los Angeles for, 14 years at this point, and went to undergrad for acting. And so the lion's share of my time here, my focus has been on that. And so my branching out into writing, I'm not going to lie, was like a little bit unexpected for me. Are you familiar with Julia Cameron's Artist Way? Okay.
Oh, you are? Okay.
So I had done that back in, I think, 2019 for the first time, and like really had started to conceptualize what it meant to be like a creative person outside of just being an actor, and had to kind of confront like so many limiting beliefs about like I can only do one thing or like only be one thing. And so that like planted some seeds. But practically speaking, and I acknowledge as I tell this story that I've been incredibly lucky and that things really fell into place in a way for me that is unbelievable. So I had a industry contact and friend that I'd worked with my first year in LA years ago on like a little no budget, nothing short, like it was just kind of, I was working for free, and the writer and my co-star, same person, he and I became friends and stayed in touch over the years. And like once or twice a year in LA, we would just grab a coffee and catch up, and you know what I mean, like just stayed in touch. And during the pandemic he had moved away, but we caught up, and he asked what I was up to, and I said I'm just really loving rom-coms as an actor. I was speaking again as an actor. I really want to do a rom-com. And 2 months later he ended up getting a job. He had moved into the more producing side of things. He got a job as a creative development exec at Real One International, who I'd had my eyeballs on as an actor because I'd auditioned for some of their films. And he hit me up one morning and was like, I know at this point I'd written a short, right? He was like, I know you love rom-coms. I do a lot of content creation online, a lot of comedy content. So I was kind of creating and producing in that capacity. It's like, I know you love rom-coms, and I'm looking for some writers to pitch. I'm brand new here in this position. I'm trying to build a roster of writers. Have you ever thought about pitching, about writing, about pitching something, a rom-com? And my answer was no. Like, I was like, what are you talking about? What? I was like, well, maybe as like a way to get jobs as an actor. And I kind of like sat on that for a little bit, which is insane. But there was just like a small part of me that thought, if I wanted to do that, I think I could. And I acknowledge that that's actually insane. Like, I don't know like where that like little belief like lived in me or like where that came from. But I thought, I'm just going to read Save the Cat, and I'm going to come up with like a handful of titles and log lines, and I'm just going to soft pitch them to him, and he'll be able to tell very quickly, and he's honest, if like this is not what we're looking for. And so I did. And amongst those ideas was Love at First Like. And he responded very enthusiastically to that concept. And so I was like, oh, okay. And the way that you pitch to them is a written pitch. It's a 3-page pitch doc, which is basically like a 3-page narrative telling of the entire story. And so I took about a month, based on everything I was learning structurally in Save the Cat. And I was like, built a pitch for Love at First Like. And to both my surprise and his surprise, his boss, they purchased it. His boss loved it, loved the pitch. And they were like, wonderful. Here's this like very serious legally binding contract that you will deliver this screenplay to us. And I was just like, oh my God. Okay. This door has like blown open in a way that I never expected. And again, like I acknowledge how insane that is. That would be like one of my actor friends being like, I decided to audition and I'm now a series regular. I'd be like, what? I get it. You know, I acknowledge that is crazy. Although I do think that many, many years of reading scripts as an actor, script analysis, character analysis, learning to recognize what a good, exciting, fun, funny scene looked like all of that was really foundational for me as a writer. So I came at the script from a perspective of like, if I was an actor and I got these sides, what would make me want to do this project? What would make me feel like this character? Like, are the things there that I always look for as an actor? An arc, something changing in the scene. They're fighting for something. There's fun dialogue, like all of those elements as an actor that I always look for. I just wanted to make sure as a writer that they were in my script. And so I really came to writing from the acting perspective. And so that was how I got my first job, and did write that, and it got made, which is just unbelievable. And since then, and that was a little over 2 years ago, since then I've written 5 feature scripts. 2 of them I co-wrote, and 3 of them were for Reel One. So I have 2 other completed scripts with Reel One. One is greenlit, one I don't know if it's going to be made. And so that's kind of like that's the overview.
Oh, that's so cool. You know, we were wondering before because we both watched Love at First Like, and Aviva told me like as I was watching it that you were in it, and because I didn't realize that you were actually in the movie. But we were wondering like, you like how did that play out that like you got a part in it too? Like, did you write it? And then I guess, but it sounds like you had already had a background in acting. So then, when you guys were casting the movie, did you audition or?
I very much write to act, not always, but in this instance, definitely. And I had told my friend, like, listen, like, I'm thrilled to be writing this, but like, I would like to be in it. And he was very honest in that he was like, listen, I'm new at this job. Like, I cannot make you any promises. He's like, I don't have that kind of pull. Like, he had worked with me, you know? And so he was like, you know, make sure you write more than one part that you would enjoy in this, and, you know, just give yourself more chances, more opportunities to be in it. And so I had written Maisie selfishly as a role that would be really fun to play, that had a lot of jokes, that's in a lot of the movie, even as a supporting, thinking like, okay, I'll at least get a crack at both Casey and Maisie, ideally. But it all depends on the production company and the director or the producer that they partner with it. I wasn't even sure if it was going to shoot in Canada or in the US. If it goes to Canada, the likelihood that an American gets hired is much lower because they were more expensive. But it ended up shooting here in LA, which was a surprise to us. And then I just auditioned like everybody else and really hoped for the best. And thankfully the director, producer John liked me for Maisie. And so I got to be in it, but there were no guarantees, and it would have been hard. Frankly, it would have been hard for me. It would have been sad to not be in it. Although I realize how privileged I am that something I wrote was sold and actually got made. And that in itself is unbelievable. But I wanted to see it all the way through. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to also take part in bringing it to life, but I'm not a producer on the project. So it's not up to me, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about.
It's a way to secure being on set the whole time. Like, as a writer, you know, we talked to other writers and they've said, oh, I didn't get to go to set, or I went to set for 2 days. And so that's like a little hack to make sure that you get to see every scene.
I know. And I didn't get to see every scene. So we were still this was in 2021. So there was still COVID, or was it 2022? 2022. There were still COVID issues happening. We actually had to recast 3 actors who got COVID or we didn't recast, I mean production recast.
Yeah.
And so because of that, they were like, you can be on set, but just on the days you're working, but we're really trying to keep the crew as insular and small as possible because we're testing for COVID throughout. But yes, I still, because Maisie's in a lot of the movie, I still got to be on set for most of the days. And that was incredible. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, it was just so wild.
So fun.
Yeah, it was neat.
And so meta, just like rooting for your own characters on screen, you know, like I love that.
The day that we did the speed dating montage, I think that was our last day of shooting, but just like showing up and like the scope of that day of shooting, because a lot of, you know, these are low budget TV movies. Like, these are not made for a lot of money. And so like that was the day that we did bigger set pieces, and like just stepping into that as the writer and seeing all the day players who are like playing the men that she's like speed dating with, and then like setting up this whole like bar area. Like I was truly in awe, like more so than any of the other days, just because it had some scope. And it was so fun to like meet all these day player actors who were playing these like wacky guys that I had like written for her to date. I just loved it. It was so much fun. Even though, you know, as Maisie, I'm not in that scene, but I was working later in the day, so I got to be there for all of that.
That's so fun. I'm kind of curious to know like what inspired the story. So it sounds like you kind of came up with a bunch of different ideas, right, that you pitched. But like, was there something in particular? Yeah.
This one was my favorite, though. I sent like 5 or 6, but I was really partial to this one. When I was coming up with concepts, I was really deep into content creation on Instagram and on TikTok. So I'm also a content creator, and I was like really deep into TikTok creator world.
Okay.
I'm sure you pieced together that they call it Talkflix, which is an insane name. That was not my preference. For legal reasons, they had to. But he's a TikTok influencer, creator. And so I was just sitting in a Starbucks drive-thru, headed to my friends, and I thought, how fun would it be to do like a little bit of a How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. There's elements of that in this. She's a journalist having to cover someone she doesn't want to cover, etc. But I thought, how fun if my male lead was a TikTok creator. Like, I don't think that that's something that I've seen. I thought, like, what an interesting persona, and it would totally make sense that she as a journalist would not take someone like that seriously. And the title came to me very, very quickly thereafter, because I was like, oh, right, like social media likes, yeah. And so I just kind of, I was like sitting in the Starbucks drive-thru, and I just wrote like love at first like, and like a very fast like log line, and sort of expanded it from there. I had of course, as it happens, the way the movie ends up is sometimes different from what the original concept was. So in my original pitch, Ryan, my male lead, was Ravi, and he was like a first-gen American, like from like an Indian American family. And I kind of wanted to have his journey be a little bit more of an examination of what it is to be someone who goes into a creative career when maybe your parents' hopes and dreams for you are not that at all. And obviously that like went through a transformation in selling the pitch and in getting notes from the studio and things like that. But originally that was my idea, is like, oh, how interesting that like this sort of uptight, I don't, uptight's not even really the right word, but like very type A, and a little bit of like an elitist journalist mind woman has to, interview this guy that she doesn't take seriously, and then finds out that there's actually much more to him, obviously, than she had originally thought, much more merit. And so yeah, it just kind of sprang to mind, frankly.
I love it. I love the title too. Did you come up with the title name?
Yeah, it just kind of popped into my head around the time, like the same time the concept did. Like thank you. Yeah, very quickly thereafter, and I was like, oh, I'm into that. Like, I was very excited about that concept for sure. And when I sent these and met with my executive producer Richard and my friend, he was like, this was also the one where he was like very enthusiastic about it. So it was kind of nice to like soft pitch a bunch of ideas, but have him be like, I like this one. And I'm like, I like this one too. I'm really like, of all these stories that I want to tell, this is the one I want to tell first, like right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you have a favorite scene to write and also to watch? Like, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene to write, so some of the Casey and Ryan, like sort of that tete-a-tete plucky dialogue back and forth came to me really, really early, and I would just like open my notes app and just like dialogue dump into my notes app. So like a lot of their first sort of initial like face off, where she's interviewing him for the first time, he's dodging her questions. She's like, I take risks. I ate an expired yogurt.
Yeah.
Like he says that she looks like a ballet, like her blazer, like all that stuff. I enjoyed writing
That was my favorite
so
scene.
much.
Yeah, that was really cute.
It was really fun. It was really fun back and forth. And so I loved writing that. And I understood in writing it that the inherent challenge of writing a rom-com about a journalist is that it's a lot of sitting and talking. Like journalists sit and interview their subjects. And so I wanted to make sure to get these people on their feet. And so in the initial writing of that, there was a lot of physical business that didn't end up making it to the final version of the movie, where it's like he was literally going, like dodging her from room to room in his house. And she's just like following him. Like she just would not leave him alone. And so it was just very fun to play a scene in which like she's not afraid to be direct and even a little bit aggressive in her approach to him. And that he's kind of, shimming his way out of these questions in this conversation. And I loved writing that scene. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really cute. We love enemies to lovers. So
Yeah.
It's my go-to because witty banter is like the best, like it's so fun to write. It's so fun to watch. So yeah, as far as writing, I think I enjoyed that the most and watching, it's hard to say. It's such a strange experience watching something that you've written because you have the movie that you've seen in your head as you were writing, and so it's just this very kind of bizarre, it's like almost like laying like tracing paper on top of something you wrote, and you're like seeing sort of like a similar version but not the same. And so for me, like there was this very like, I enjoyed watching it, but it was also this part of me that was like, wait, this isn't what I imagined. But that's not bad, it's just not what I had pictured fully, in the same like detail. And so it was like this like strange reconciling for my brain that like this story exists in two planes. It exists in my imagination as I imagined it, and then it exists in this interpretation of this filmmaker. And it was incredibly exciting, but also just like wild for my brain. Like there were so many synapses firing of like, oh right, so the coffee shop is like, the orientation of the coffee shop is different than what I pictured. Just things like that again are not bad, but just adjustments. As I watched it, it was wild, really wild.
It's so exciting. I think it's really cool too how like we've talked a few times on the podcast with other writers and just other people we've interviewed about like how acting can improve your writing. And so I was thinking about what you were saying, right, about how you as an actor having like read scripts and like studied characters before like helped you when you went to write your first script. I mean, it sounds like your knowledge of screenwriting did come from just reading scripts and then reading Save the Cat.
Yeah.
And then just, but like you understood like, oh, like this is what makes the scene funny, or like, cause I did think you did a really good job with like all the witty dialogue. Like that was my favorite part in the movie, was like their banter against each other.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Because that was really important to me going in, when you write these, there's a lot of constraints, and like constraints breed creativity. So, and that's what I kept telling myself. But there are, in particular to budget, and you receive like a very specific set of parameters of like, you can only have this many unique locations, this many supporting players, all in the efforts to have what you're writing fit within the constraints of their budget and also the speed of production, like at which these are made. And so I knew that where I could really put my mark on this was with dialogue, because it's like I could make that as like densely fun and add as much witty banter as possible, and I could do that within the constraints of this genre and this budget. Like I couldn't do a lot of like wild locations or like too many supportings, or like there are those constraints, but I knew that those constraints didn't apply to writing fun dialogue. And so when I went into writing this, that was very important to me, that it was fun and funny dialogue, because I knew that was something that I could control to an extent, whereas like so many of the other elements of the film were up to somebody else. So I do appreciate you saying that, because that was a huge priority to me going in.
I really like what you just said about constraints breeding creativity, because I think that's so true. Like when I'm trying to think of a new rom-com idea, like it really helps to, you know, obviously, like, I feel like the more specific almost, like, the easier it is to be creative in some ways versus just being able to do anything. I like that.
Yeah, it was a good exercise, and it was a good entrance into screenwriting. That the first thing I wrote, I was writing for somebody else, and so there had to be a fair amount of ego checking that happened throughout the process, because as a friend of mine recently said, like, this is their art project. You know what I mean? Like, the movie, the commercial that you're a cog, a part of, like, this is their art project, not yours. And so while it was deeply important to me that this is something that I was proud of and wanted to be excellent, I had to, you know, check my ego fairly regularly, because I'm a hired gun. You know what I mean? I am writing this for them within the constraints of what they feel will be most likely to sell to buyers. And so there was this understanding of that throughout. And I did appreciate starting there, because those constraints were helpful. It gave me sort of guardrails, like parameters for this story, and it was useful.
Do you have any advice for other writers out there that, like, I think this is something we think about a lot too, that now that we've kind of talked to other writers and other actor writers, is like, is there, for you as an actress, what do you look for in a script when you read it that, like, helps you either get into character or helps you to decide like whether or not it's a story that you want to tell?
Yeah, I always look for, some of it's strategic because I often get sized for auditions. And so within the context of a scene, I'm always looking for the arc. Like, what am I fighting for? What happens and what changes, like, throughout the scene? Like, as an actor, you kind of need to know that stuff. Otherwise, you're showing up to set, you're not going to do a very good job. And as a writer, that's key. You know what I mean? To look at each scene and also your script as a whole and say, like, what changes within the scene? What are they fighting for? Like, what's the opposition? What's the obstacle? I also get really excited about just funny dialogue, witty banter. I also really love when I get a scene and, like, it's clear that the script has been tightened. Like, there's not a lot of extra fat on it. It's just like, it's very tight dialogue that, like, maximizes laughs or dramatic action in, like, a short amount of time. It doesn't feel like super self-indulgent and, like, having a lot of, like, flourishes. It's just a personal preference for me as an actor, but I like when it's like, I look at it and it's just tight, it's polished, it's funny. If it's a comedy, if it's a drama, it's clear what the conflict is, and those, looking for those things both as a writer and as an actor, just makes such a big difference. You know, it helps with the cohesion of your story.
Yeah. And I'm curious as well. So, like, Peacock is the streamer that it ended up, when you were making it, like, how does it work? Like, do you shop around the completed film to try to find a home for it, or how does that work?
They do. Yeah, that's my understanding. And truthfully, I'm not super knowledgeable or involved in the sales element, but what I did know when we were making it is that, like, it didn't have, sometimes these things have a home already. Yeah. Like, it's part of an overall deal with Tubi, and you're writing it specifically for that. With this one, it was, they were going to make it and they were going to shop it. They sell globally, which is also something that really influenced a number of the parameters for me as a writer, in terms of, like, some of my jokes were deemed too racy, which was shocking to me, because I never thought my comedy would be too, like, racy for anybody. But in certain countries, these play during the day when, like, little kids are home. And so there was definitely a lot of the parameters that were given to me had to do with, like, global sales. So I didn't even know if it would be released domestically here in the US. I certainly had hoped that. And I knew that, like, some of their stuff goes to Up TV, some of their stuff goes to Hallmark, Lifetime. I think Lifetime is one of the owners of Real One. But the fact that it ended up on Peacock and on Amazon Freebie is insane. I never would have even hoped for that. I just hoped it would be available in the US at all. And even then, there was no guarantee of that. And I thought, well, hopefully maybe on, like, Up TV or some app that people can download that they don't have normally, but at least, like, my family can see it. And so when it popped up on Amazon Freebie and then on Peacock, just a few weeks ago, I can't wrap my head around that. That's insane to me. I had, like, no guarantee, no warning. No one even really, like, clued me in. It was just like, oh my God, it's on Peacock. That's so cool. That's so fun that people can watch it there.
That must have been so exciting.
It was really exciting. It was wild. You know, like, I knew obviously it wasn't for theatrical release. It's a TV movie, but yeah, you don't know. I didn't know where it was going to land. I know a lot of their stuff airs in Canada and in Spain and France, and like there are some countries that like just buy most of what they make, but I didn't know if the States would be one of those. And so it's just like to have it end up on Peacock so available is like beyond what I could have ever hoped for, truly.
I was just gonna ask if you had like a premiere with like your friends and family. Like, did you guys like all watch it together, or?
I should have. So I had access to like a password protected screener a while ago. So like, and the first time I watched it was just by myself in my living room, and I was just, it was like a fire hose of like information and feelings. I was like, oh my God, here it is. And then many months ago, when I didn't know if it was going to show here in the US, I watched it with my family. We like hooked the password, we watched the password protected screener, like with my parents and one of my siblings. And it was such a delight to watch with them. Now that it's more broadly available, I haven't, although I certainly should.
It's not too late.
Have it over and like I'm totally, because it's kind of new as in the sense of just being broadly available on Peacock. So yeah, I pretty much have only experienced it like privately a couple of times, and that feels like a wasted opportunity for sure.
Yeah,
should do something to celebrate. Yeah.
I was curious. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but like about viewership and like, because you were talking about international viewership, I'd be like, are American viewers like the top demographic for this kind of film, or are there certain countries? Like, I'm just really curious.
I have no idea. I don't know. I do know, like I said, I think it was Spain and France. Like, there's networks in those countries and in Canada that purchase a lot of these TV movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know if these are particularly like molded for that audience. But yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't even know if it was going to sell for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, as a writer, you don't get like a lot of updates. So it's like, I think I saw on, or like maybe my mom found on like IMDb that like someone from like Serbia or Bosnia was like watched it and liked it. I'm like, oh, so it's over there, I guess. Like, nobody told me, you know what I mean? So it's like they sell all of these globally, and but I didn't know where they would tend to be, other than like maybe France and Spain had been mentioned, but yeah, no guarantees, which is so crazy.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And who knows, like maybe certain people like using it to learn English, or I don't know, like it's just really interesting to, to think about where your movie might land.
I know. And on the educational note, a crazy story about the script is that the actor Eric Roberts, are you guys familiar? He was like, you know, in The Dark Knight, like he's been in a ton of stuff. He tweeted one day that he loved my script, that it was like, that he loved it. And I was like, first of all, how did you get this? Like, how did this end up in your hands? You're an amazing actor. Oh my God, that's so nice. He also posted on Instagram about it. And I'm like, this known actor is shouting me out on social media. I have no idea how he got it. And it turns out that his wife coaches actors for auditions. And she had coached one of the actresses who auditioned for Casey. And he and I eventually connected privately in DMs, and he said that that they liked it so much that he use it with their students as like scene study practice. So they'll like pull scenes from what it was like and like use it, apply it educationally to like coach and like and I was like so thrilled by that. I was so touched. I couldn't believe it. It was like, oh my gosh, so this has an application beyond this movie, that like it's being used in this like educational capacity, which was so wild and so touching. And he said, he's like, I wish you could see the different iterations of this that I've seen with students. Like, it's really fun. And I was just, again, like mind blown. Like, are you kidding me? That's so wild. So yeah, you never know like how it's going to be used or applied. Yeah, exactly. So it's so cool.
Can you remind me the timeline of all of this? Like, when did you write the script to like when it got made to when it aired? Because it sounds like a lot of this all just happened over the last like 2 years or so.
It's very fast. And at least I can only speak for working with this one studio, but even the process of pitching and writing is like pretty condensed. So I sent off my written pitch in January of 2022. Yeah, that's right. And it was purchased by the end of that month. And then there's like a pretty regimented process. I don't know, like, I don't want to get like too into the weeds with it, but like, Once you sell the pitch, then you have ostensibly, is it 2 weeks to do a scene by scene outline? So like you're paid like per step. And so it's like you do the scene by scene outline, sometimes get notes on that and do another pass and sometimes don't. Thankfully, my pass on my scene by scene, we didn't have any major structural changes. And then once that's approved, then you go to pages and you have a month to first draft, which is fast.
Yeah, that's fast.
That's fast. And especially having not written a full feature script, I wasn't sure how much time it was going to take me to write it. I knew I had to get it within that time parameter, within that deadline. And so I was working not just weekdays, but through weekends because I wanted to have more than enough time. I didn't want to be like pushing that deadline. I wanted to finish it early, even within that month, to then have a couple of trusted friends give me notes on it before I sent that first draft to my producer. And then you do one, sometimes two. I just did one set of rewrites on it, and you usually have like a couple of weeks for your rewrites. And then yeah, it's done. I mean, so I think this all was done within like a period of like about 3 months from pitch to finished product. And then, so I guess that would mean I finished it like late March or maybe like the first week of April. And then it went into production in July. Like July.
Wow.
That's crazy.
They're like it's green light, you know, like everybody was like very excited about it and liked it. And so it was greenlit. I was like, amazing. And then it just like, and then the news was, oh, we're going to shoot it in LA. I'd set it in LA again, being tricky and like hoping that they would film it here. So I kind of set it in a location that would be difficult to shoot in Canada. Sorry, Canadians, but I was selfish and I wanted it to film here in the States and film in LA. And so then I got word like, yeah, we're going to do it in LA. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then it was like, yeah, we're doing it this summer. And I just was bowled over by that. Yeah. Crazy. So that was all very fast. I pitched my second script to them while I was working on the pitch while I was filming Love at First Like. And that script is called The Fomance. It's about a PR relationship, which was something else I like really wanted to delve into. That sounded so fun. And I had originally, the pitch that sold was not this, but I'd originally pitched it as an NFL player in a PR relationship with a woman. And I was like, am I a soothsayer?
Oh my gosh.
What?
Like, so relevant.
But it didn't end up being that. They had me change his profession to sell the pitch. But yeah, that was next. And so it was just kind of one script after another. I wrote that one. And then I started working with a writing partner on an action comedy, writing on spec. And then as I finished that one, the opportunity came for me to pitch another one to Reel One, another TV movie, the day we finished our action comedy spec. So I worked on that and then another action comedy spec kind of simultaneously through last year. I finished both my second action comedy spec and then my third script for Reel One last November. So it was basically like I started a couple of years ago and I just didn't stop. I just was like, well, doors are opening. I'm not going to question this. I'm just going to keep moving forward, even though this is scary and uncertain and the imposter syndrome is so loud. Like I've been given opportunities that I know are rare and I'm not going to waste them. And so I've just kept working. As much as I can. Oh yeah. Wild.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
that's amazing.
I bet, like, we've talked about this before, like, when we have people with more power wanting writing from us, we will deliver a lot faster than
that's right.
just writing for ourselves.
Yes,
so
it was like,
it must be so motivating.
It is. I've started in the beginning of this calendar year writing something on spec just like for myself. And it is so much more difficult to work quickly. It's like with working for someone else, you're like, a good decision today is better than a perfect decision 2 weeks from now. Like I have to just make a decision and move forward and like, okay, what is this next good plus point? Sure. I mull it for a little while. And I'm like, yep, that'll do. And you just have to keep moving. And it's an advantage, you know, now that I'm working on my own, it's on something just for myself. It's like so much easier to put off your sort of self-imposed deadlines and, you know, it's harder to work at that same clip.
Yeah.
What's your writing process like? Do you just sit down and just hammer away and just don't stop until you reach, like the second act, or
I need an outline. I know this is like, listen, there's so much that's controversial on Twitter, and like I have no desire to enter into the debates. I'm like, can we all let's all just work how it works for us. How it works for me is I need an outline. Like I start with, it's all very Save the Cat. It's not very mystical or magical. It's like I come up with a title and a log line, and I rework that until I feel like it's interesting, funny, dynamic, with a good title. And then I go to my beat sheet and I just fill out a beat sheet and I chip away at that. And then once I feel like I have a good beat sheet, then I go to a scene by scene outline, and I just outline it scene by scene all the way through. And then once I'm done with that, I go to pages. And so, a lot of that is how I was required to do it for Reel 1, but in doing that, realized it really worked for me and just adopted it as my own sort of like personal approach. And my writing partner has that same approach, luckily for me, for both of us. And so when I work with him as well, it's the same thing. It's title and log line, beat sheet, scene by scene, and then to pages, and then rewriting, like our lives depend on it. And so it's very structured. It's not very mystical, but it's very, at times like kind of a slog, frankly, because it's like, it's so fun when you go to pages, but outlining kind of blows, like it's not, it's not romantic outlining, but I find that I need that step. I do. When I go to pages, I want it. I don't want to be searching, kind of rummaging around for the story. I like to have a good idea going in personally. Yeah. But more power to people who like love to discover as they go. I'm like, that must be so free. That sounds absolutely terrifying to me, but good for you. That's great.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way, and Isabel is too. We like to really write detailed outlines and know what we're doing beforehand. Because I think I could probably write like Act 1 maybe without an outline, and then it would fall apart.
Totally, it's like your setup. And I've done that on the most recent one I'm working on. Is like I just kind of wanted to get in pages for fun, and so I wrote like part of my Act 1. It's like that I can do, but then it's like once you get too far past that into your second act, like I don't know, for me personally, I need a better, clearer idea of where I'm going.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Because who likes rewriting? Not me. So it's like the more I outline and prepare, like the less changing on the back end that I have to do, and I don't enjoy doing all that changing on the back end. So if I can, it's inevitable. You have to do it, but like if I can remove some of that ahead of time by preparing, I like that more personally.
I'm curious just about the rom-com in general. Your thoughts on the rom-com? Like, do you think we're experiencing a rom-com renaissance? Just like, I'm just curious your thoughts on the rom-com right now.
I certainly hope so. I'm really excited. Are you guys familiar with Emily Henry's books? She writes, I guess technically they'd be called romance, but they're really more like rom-com books. But her books, all 3 of like her 5 are already actively being adapted into screenplays. And so I'm really excited if the types of books that she writes being adapted into rom-coms is like the future of rom-coms, because I think that her witty banter is like A++, and like her rom-coms are really, really solid. And I've looked at the writers who were hired to adapt them, and they're wonderful in their own right. And so whether it is adapting really good books or original concepts, like I certainly hope that we're living in this rom-com renaissance. And I'll admit that like even years ago, like I was a little bit of a snob and like liked to watch sort of like, awards fodder, sad sack, like, and I still enjoy that stuff, but I didn't have an appreciation for rom-coms years ago. And I found, ironically, when I became a parent, when I was pregnant years ago, I wanted to watch things with levity. Like I needed that. Like I couldn't watch anything too serious or scary. And I found myself really leaning into funny, feel good entertainment. And then shortly after I became a parent, the pandemic hit, and again, found myself really craving like warm hug content. You know what I mean? Like stuff that was funny. And I, as a viewer, I came to really understand the value of that in a way that I didn't previously, in a way that I kind of maybe before had just like looked down on some rom-coms or in that genre. And now I just adore them and I value them, and I feel so proud and like honored to get to tell those types of stories, because I think that they really are valuable. I love them, and I hope to see more. I mean, anyone but you has done well numbers wise, and like this industry responds to bottom dollar, right? And so it's like I think that speaks volumes, and I certainly hope, and I really hope too, that as the volume, you know, as more rom-coms are given opportunities, I hope we see more diverse stories, because I do think that the rom-com and like genre, generally speaking, has not been perhaps as inclusive as it should be. And so I'm hoping that we can see, as the volume of those being made increases, that we can also make room for more diverse stories within that, you know, that genre.
Yeah, I just want to see a hot Indian male lead as a rom-com.
Excited about it, you guys. And like, listen, like I don't want anything I say in this interview to feel like I'm disparaging our finished product. I'm really proud of Love at First Sight. But there was a version of it that existed in my imagination with like a diverse male lead, and had, in my opinion, like just a little bit more of a compelling journey. And I would love to see that. I really would.
Yeah, for sure.
Someday.
Yeah, one of these days. Yeah, I do think that I always think about it of like, there's like, the world is just so heavy right now, and I think people want like to watch happier things. And like, I always think of it as, at least for me, like my comfort movies are like Nora Ephron films. Like I'm not like, when I'm sad or depressed, I'm not going and watching like a like serial killer documentary to like comfort me. So I think, I would hope that most people like are the same, where like their comfort movies are something lighthearted and fun. So that's where I just like believe we're heading in that direction, where people want more happy movies, as opposed to like, I feel that some streamers have maybe given us one too many serial killer documentaries lately, where I'm just like, are we done with this phase of our life?
There's like a couple new rom-coms on Netflix just in like the last couple of weeks, and so like they seem to still be, I don't want to say churning out, because that sounds like cheap. I don't mean churning out, but they seem to be producing in that space, so that's exciting. And obviously we get a ton around the holidays, but I'm also like, the few that I've written are not holiday rom-coms, simply because the concepts that I had that sold just weren't set at the holidays. And so I'm also interested, I feel like we get a lot around the holidays, and that's really fun in its own right. But like, I'm really interested in just a plain and simple rom-com. You know what I mean? Like, like you said, like a Nora Ephron movie, like some of her movies are over the holidays, or like When Harry Met Sally feels very autumnal. My husband and I watch When Harry Met Sally every New Year's Eve because of the obvious New Year's Eve set piece. But I love a rom-com that like it can span the holidays, but it's really a story about love more than any like particular holiday.
I tend to like, if it's a holiday one, I like where the holiday is more in the background, like you're saying, where like it feels like you want to watch it during, you know, Christmas time, but it's not like every conversation's like talking about a holiday tradition, which can get pretty stale for me as a viewer.
I agree. And like, I love, for example, like The Holiday. Like there are some Christmas rom-coms that have a very special place in my heart, but like there's something about those Nora Ephron ones that just like you said, it's a little more in the background. Like it's just more of like a vibe that, I don't know, that's a sweet spot for me as a viewer, for sure.
Yeah, same.
Do you have a favorite rom-com that's like your rom-com that you always go to, or?
It's When Harry Met Sally. I know like that's a very like kind of like basic B word answer, but it's a classic for a reason. I never get tired of watching it. We watch it every year, and then sometimes obviously in between New Year's I'll watch it again. It's infinitely quotable, and it's just an excellent movie in its own right. I mean, Nora Ephron was nominated for an Oscar for that script, and I think that there's a reason. Like it's excellent character and storytelling, and it's so funny and moving, and you just root for these people all the way. And gosh, I love everything about it. I truly never get tired of it. I just adore it.
Yeah, we do too, obviously, because our name of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It's a classic. But I also do really enjoy and appreciate the like rom-com action comedy sort of intersection. So like The Lost City that came out with Sandra Bullock 3 or 4 years ago. Some people were into it, some people weren't. It didn't like make a big splash, but I love two people going on an adventure while they are also falling in love, however like awkwardly, because then you get that like fish out of water element, which is so fun. And like I also am really here for that kind of a movie too.
Yeah, so fun. So I guess that transitions, like that was the first one of our quick fire rounds. Do you want to, Isabel, you agree? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we talked about your favorite rom-com.
Yes.
Your favorite rom-com trope. We've talked a lot about a little bit. Yeah. Which one is your favorite to write or watch?
Yeah. Enemies to lovers. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I like, even when I'm looking for books to read, like I was looking for a book to read the other night and it was like, if you love enemies to lovers, I was like, purchase. Like I don't have to, like I don't, it was like, it's such an easy yes from me. So for sure, enemies to lovers, and like bonus points if there's some like fish out of water for one or both characters. I really, really enjoy that.
Do you have a favorite rom-com outfit that like you always think about, either like the one of the male for the male or for the female lead?
Well, it's become iconic, especially in the last couple of years, but it's like Harry's like white cable knit sweater with like the jeans and the Reeboks that he wears when they're like rolling up the rug. I mean, the obvious answer is from like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Like that yellow dress is everything. Like it's so iconic. But like outside the box answer, I would say like Harry's cable knit sweater. It's a serve. It's really good.
As soon as you said Harry's sweater, that's like the first image I think of is like that specific sweater, that scene. Like it is very iconic in its own way.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so do you have a favorite rom-com line or moment that you've witnessed in a film?
Oh gosh, there's so much. There's so many. It's not even a very romantic moment, but I think the hardest I have ever laughed watching a rom-com is when Bruno Kirby in When Harry Met Sally says, "You made a woman meow." Like, I don't think I have ever laughed harder. Like that. And like, it's funny because it's like, it's not a line between the two leads, but like, there are so many lines between Harry and Bruno Kirby, or when he's like, I don't know if I can I use profanity? Am I allowed to? It's like, when he's like, that symptom is fucking my wife. Like, or like, you know, like, there's so much that's like infinitely quotable. But I really appreciate in You've Got Mail when he says, "Don't cry, shop girl," is so good. Or when she's like, "That caviar is a garnish," and she's like really upset. Like, there's just so much. It's just Nora Ephron for life, you know?
So good.
Yeah. Aviva, you should tell her your favorite line from her movie that you were just telling me about before we came on.
The committed line. I really like the committed line. And it's also in the trailer of your film. Yeah.
It's nice to hear that, because I remember specifically writing that and being like, is that too broad of comedy? But I was like, whatever. I'm just throwing it in.
No, it's great.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Have you seen anything recent that you would recommend? Like a recent rom-com?
It's recent-ish in the last like few years, but I loved Set It Up on Netflix.
I love Set It Up really too. Cute.
It was so fun. I thought it was really solid. And there's also one, oh shoot, I'm going to butcher the title. It's something like Love in the Villa, I think maybe, or Love at the Villa. It's
with Kat
set
Graham.
in Verona. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that was cute.
I had a friend recommend that, and I hadn't heard anything about it, and I watched it. I just found it to be immensely charming, and I love Italy, so it's like, who doesn't want to go to Italy for like a nice rom-com? So as far as like, and those, I think those were both Netflix, but as far as those go, they were both like pleasant surprises. Like I kind of went in like, this will be a fun watch while I like fold my laundry, and then ended up just like really enjoying them both. And I think, incidentally, they are both enemies to lovers, so as a shock to no one, I really enjoyed them. Yeah.
I want to write something in Italy eventually. I know, it's expensive to film, but I just so many of my favorites are set in Italy. Like,
it's like
Letters to
it's
Juliet.
Yes, or even like, I mean, I don't know would Roman holiday qualify as a romantic comedy. Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
yeah,
an
it's like
OG.
even
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's like it's such wish fulfillment, right? Like to like have this like fun romantic plot in like this incredibly romantic place. It's one of the things I liked about the
So
one set in
pretty.
Verona is just like, oh, what an escape! Like what a delightful escape that is.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. This kind of leads us to the next one. If money didn't matter, what's a rom-com you would make?
It's the one that I'm working on right now, and I on spec, which I realize is a tough sell because it's not cheap, but I would write something that is a fish out of water story of a woman who is transported back into Regency era England, into the land of Darcy and Jane Austen, and but not fictional, you know, like that actual
So
era.
fun.
I love the idea of someone with modern sensibilities entering into that world, and any movie with period piece elements is expensive and a hard sell.
Yes.
But I would love a movie that doesn't treat that era preciously or over romanticize it, but just like really delves into what truly falling in love as a woman in that, you know, as a contemporary woman transported to that era, what that would look and feel like. It would essentially be like a reverse Kate and Leopold. Like instead of Leopold
Yeah.
coming to the
I was
future, it's
just
like
about
Kate
to mention that
going.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the spec that I'm working on now. So it's like if money didn't apply, I'm writing it knowing that it's a hard
Yes.
sell, but that I just really I find that fascinating, and it's a story that I would be super pissed if someone else told it before me. So I'm like I'm gonna work on this and just see what happens. So that would be the answer for
Yeah,
me.
that's so fun.
Yeah,
I
that
Yeah.
sounds
love
fun.
like historical elements in the modern world a lot. I want to write something
Yeah.
like that too.
Yes, and also like it's always, except with the exception of Outlander, it's always the men time traveling. I'm like, when do the ladies get to go places in
Yeah.
time? Like it's always like she's pining and he's like popping in and out of her life, and it's like the rom-com equivalent of like the woman in the boxing movie who's always like, don't get hurt, I'll wait at home for you. And it's like, no, like
Yeah,
I want the women to have
yeah.
agency, time travel agency, as well as
Yeah,
other
yeah.
agency. And I love the movie Austin Land, which is like a little bit of that sort of
Yes.
like same vibe of like contemporary woman and like that. It's not truly
I love that
historical
too.
era, but something imitating that historical era is so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I would watch that.
Me too.
Thank you. Thanks. There's like an entire like community of women who love Regency romance, and I'm like, this audience
Yeah.
is underserved. Like they have Bridgerton,
Yeah.
like that's it. So let's make some stuff for them, you know?
Yeah, and Bridgerton was really popular, so I feel like that you can
I was
use
just
that to
rewatching.
be- yeah.
Good.
I was watching it and I thought like what a hot mess I would be if I was transported into that era, and that's where the idea for my current work in progress came, because it was like I was watching it and I was loving it, but I was also like, oh my god, I'd be an absolute nightmare like to these people as a contemporary woman. But anyway,
Totally,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know
totally.
what to do.
I did watch at Christmas time. I did watch the Vanessa Hudgens movie where the knight comes to like the modern
Night-
world. A night at Christmas.
I
What
watched-
is it? Something like
Yeah,
that?
Night Before Christmas.
A Night for Christmas, a night for I watched it
It's
when we were
something like
wrapping
that.
presents, my husband and I. Yeah, we were just like, we put it on to wrap presents, and I thought like, oh, this will be fine, and then I ended up really loving it, like unironically, just being like, this was
Yeah.
really sweet. I really liked it. And I hate that I went into it skeptical, but I did, and then I was
Oh yeah,
just
I
like,
totally
Yeah.
went in
totally-
skeptical.
yeah, and it was actually quite sweet. I really enjoyed it. So
know.
yeah, I'm with you. This is a good one.
I'm such a sucker for like, I love the comedy of like, I just love when he's there and he's like at the world and then everybody just like thinks that he's like part of it and he doesn't get it. So I love when there's like those
Yes.
sort of jokes where they're just like, oh, here's the knight or whatever. And he's just like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? Like, what is
So I
this?
actually am a knight.
Yeah, he's like, I
There's
am
also,
a
like-
knight, sir.
Yeah, he's like offended. There's also like there's like an earnestness to him that is so appealing, like being from a different era. And it's like similar
Yeah.
to Leopold, right? And Kate and Leopold. Like
Yeah,
there's
I
a
love that
sincerity to him that is so first like catches Kate like totally, she doesn't know what to do with that, but then ultimately is so appealing to her, is like there's like a quality, I don't want to say unspoiled, but like again, like
Yeah.
there's like a sweetness to him that
Yeah.
Clarity. Yeah,
she's so,
yeah.
that we're all charmed by watching it, you know?
Totally, yeah.
I feel like if I was an actor, that would be my favorite kind of acting to be, would be to be like, all right, you're a knight, but you're in like modern day America. So you're playing
That'd be
a
really
knight.
fun.
It's like, and as an actor, every actor wants to do everything, right? Like we want to be everything, we want to try everything, all the genres, but there's nothing quite like playing falling in love. Like it's really like as an actor, an experience that is like really special.
No.
I don't know. I did a mini series for Lifetime that was like a romance mini series that I was the lead in like years ago. And you know, there was nothing romantic happening with my co-star and I outside of this story. Like it was all very professional, but like there's something really sweet and really special about exploring falling in love as this character. Like it's wonderful. Even the heartbreak of it is like beautiful in its own way. I don't know. I love it. It's great. It's fun to write and it's fun
That's
to
so
experience
fun.
even in like imaginary capacity. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely fall in love with my characters as I write them. And then I get all sad when I'm like, oh, I
Yes.
have to make you depressed now and torture
I
you for the
know.
next 30 pages.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. It's like you like hurt for them, right? Like you just like you don't want
Yeah.
to, but for good story, you know, you do it for good story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is.
It's
You
worth
really
it.
do. Like it's it's cliche to say like your scripts are your babies, but like even your characters feel like your babies to a certain extent, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so before we let you go, we just kind of wanted to wrap this up, just sort of asking, like, what are you working on now? What's on the horizon for you? And how can people continue to follow your career and your projects in the future?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I have 2 more scripts in the pipeline with Reel 1, 2 more TV movies. When, where, if they'll be made, not really up to me, but those are one's greenlit. We'll see with the other one. And then I got repped this past year, not long
Oh,
before the strike, which was
congrats.
really exciting. Thank you. And so I have 2 spec scripts that are ready to go out. One will be going out very soon. I don't know how much I can say about that, but I'm really excited. Those are both action comedies, not rom-coms, but grateful to be repped and to sort of explore the market with a spec script, which is not something that I've done before. And I'm really grateful to be in good hands with my rep and with my writing partner. And then I've got that spec I'm working on my own for funsies. And yeah, you can find me. I'm more on Instagram than I am any other social media platform. My handle is Hannah M. Hines. It's the same as on Twitter, Hannah M. Hines. I create a lot of comedy content on Instagram as well. And so if you're like into sort of that like TikTok style stuff, you can find me there and follow me there. But I'm also in a Mazda commercial right now randomly. So if you see some like girl with her dad test driving her Mazda, that's your girl. That's me.
Oh my God. We'll
Awesome.
find it. We'll put it in the show notes.
So yeah, that's
You
what
should
I've
watch
got
it.
going on. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's so nice of you guys to have me on the show.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
chatting.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
everyone, if you haven't seen her film, everybody should, and write to Hannah and tell her what you think.
Yeah.
Yay, thank you guys.
Yeah. Thank you,
Have a good day, Hannah. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, it was so nice to meet you.
This has been an episode of When Isabel Met Aviva. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay up to date with our episodes, please subscribe. Bonus points if you leave us a positive review. That means a lot. You can follow us on Instagram at When Isabel Met Aviva and on Twitter /X at Isabel Met Aviva. We're both on Instagram and Twitter as well. If you have any questions or need advice, I'm Aviva Pelton on all platforms, Peltin, and this will all be in the show notes. And Isabel, do you want to share today what your socials are?
Mine are just in the show notes. I don't know. I'm becoming like less active on social media, to be honest. So
yeah, you're just writing. You're in the zone.
Yeah. So you can find my handle in the show notes if you want to chat with me.
So don't forget to watch and write as many rom-coms as possible, and we will see you guys soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.